what it feels like to have Perdition Temple up with a band like this as you're touring.
A lot of it's memory lane, because the previous band, Cannibal Corpse, back in '98 and I believe even parts of '99, between various stops throughout the U.S. and Canada and some festival events in Europe, between '98 and '99, the two bands had played together. So flash forward almost 20 years now, this band is doing basically the same thing. So it's a lot of the vibes are like they were at that time. So it's kind of like going back in a time machine and all that. I mean, those guys are good friends. You know, they've known me forever. You know, I think about 20 years or so now since our bands met back in about '97 or somewhere at some festival show in New York. One of the very first Cannibal Corpse shows. You know, so we've kept in touch over the years, and like this tour that we're doing now has been being put together since around February of this year. Because I know a few of the members of the band, the Cannibal Corpse band, are fans of the Perdition Temple band. So actually over the years, for probably about the last 5 years, there's been attempts to make this happen, but for various reasons, like the tour was too long, I wouldn't be able to get enough time away from the day job, blah, blah, blah. You know, it didn't work out. Other members of the band had commitments, they couldn't make it out. You know, but I guess the fucking stars aligned, and this time we were able to do it.
Okay.
It's a lot of work. I mean, the days are 18, 20-hour days sometimes. Some of these nights we might get 3 hours of sleep, and then we're getting up for another 8-hour drive the next day, day after day after day.
Are you generally flying or driving?
Well, we're driving to every one of them.
Oh shit.
That's a complete, white line nightmare.
Yeah, man. You see some cool stuff on the way sometimes, right?
Yeah, we try to catch some stuff as we're going along. We need to keep moving all the time because, I mean, unlike having like a tour bus and a driver where they can drive overnight and then you wake up the next day and you're at the next venue, like tonight we'll get out of here, 20 minutes out of town, we'll get a hotel. Next day we drive 7 or 8 hours to get to where the next place is. Show up, basically have enough time to throw in our merch boxes, set it up, do a sound check, and off we go. But the rough and tumble of it just kind of gives it a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, for sure, man.
And, hopefully that rubs off in the performance that we do as well.
Absolutely. Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, you've got several bands under your belt since the 90s. I'm wondering how you kind of view each band's sound and like what are your influences?
Well, I mean,
since the early days and even currently, like, because you have an original thing going on, I believe.
Going back into the times when I was a kid, a teenager, and I was first picking up a guitar and just learning how to do any of this at all, even just the whole knowing what to do with the instrument at all. I was immediately attracted to the like the harder rock stuff. Not like the hair metal bands or anything, but always just like the darker. I mean, if it was even like just like the more rock stuff, shit like Wasp. Early on, Wasp was like a rock band that grabbed me because it was just like heavy metal, plain and simple, but it had a filth factor about it that just kind of appealed to me.
Absolutely.
Then those things kind of graduated into things like Metallica and Slayer and Megadeth, etc. On and on, and then as you did that, I was fortunate enough, even though I lived in at the time a relatively obscure state of the U.S. for metal music, the state of Minnesota.
Okay, yeah.
And not even in the capital city of Minneapolis and St. Paul, but some southeastern river city, middle of nowhere. And I was fortunate enough because there happened to be a record store that was run by some kind of punkish type people, and they would stock some of the, they had shit like Wild Rags albums and the early Earache releases and shit like that.
Yeah.
And all the old Combat albums and Noise Records albums. So I was able to on various weekends go up and pick up things like a couple of Celtic Frost or Creator, Sodom, etc.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a couple of pivotal times, and I think I've said this in other interviews before too, but one that really fucking nailed me was one of the times where I had like, I mean, you know, if you remember it all back in like the mid-80s, you know, cassettes cost about $7.
Yeah.
You know, so I was a kid, I had $20, went to a record store, and picture this. The first time you're ever hearing any of these albums, the 3 tapes I bought on a particular occasion, this was like 86, leaning into 80s, I think it was 86, yeah, it was 86. So the 3 tapes I happened to buy that day were Creator's Pleasure to Kill, Dark Angels, Darkness Descends, and Morbid Tales from Celtic Frost. And on the way home, I listened to all of those, and my mind was just getting fucking blown. I mean, I would consider that. I mean, you probably listen to all these albums 1,000 fucking times. You don't even need to listen to them, you just have them embedded in your brain. But this is the first time that I'm hearing it. And I'm just like playing one tape after the other, and I'm just like, yeah, destiny is determined from that. You know, just this the speed, the constant, all that, you know. And then, of course, obvious things like Sodom, just a constant attack, like Slayers, Hell Awaits, and Rain and Blood. I mean, blah, 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 blah. I can go on and name drop whatever the fucking ever. The point is that whole just constant grating attack, you know, coming from liking the ugly heavy metal stuff like say Wasps or Motorhead or you know, the list goes on.
Absolutely.
You know, just that, where it was just that much more, and just like trying to figure out what the fuck those obscure guitar parts were and all that shit, and the crazy vocals and what the hell the lyrics were. You know, it basically took me over. And I'm like, if I'm gonna do shit, I'm gonna do shit that's like that. And probably the biggest thing I got out of the 90s, since everybody's always trying to say that I, you know, ripped off this or that or whatever the hell they think of that I'm aping something. You know, it was, you know, about the only thing I got out of any of the 90s bands that was like a really strong thing was the blast beat, the fast fucking drums. Yeah. Because that was something that the 80s didn't really have. There was maybe a little bit of that with like Sad X and Slaughterlord, but you really didn't get that until after like Napalm Death and Terrorizer and all those grind albums, Carcass, where you had the bum, 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 you know, that kind of beat. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take all this shit that I like from Possessed and Dark Angel and Celtic Frost and all the bendy, fucking noisy shit that you'd have from some of those bands, and kind of make it into my thing. I mean, I mean, even original stuff is gonna be nip and tuck of the things you like.
Of course.
The trick is to take the things that you like and make them into something that maybe hasn't been heard before, but can still fit within the frame of what you like. Because if you try to do something that's completely alien and whatnot, maybe it'll work. You might have 2 people that care, you know, or whatever. You know, but I mean, I always wanted to do something that I thought was good, that I'd want to put on my stereo and that I thought sounded good. You know, that I would want to fucking listen to. Because I didn't want to hear something that was just so completely left field from anything else that I like.
Absolutely.
You know,
well,
so
I was going to say, you've got like this chromatic, and like, I listen to your music and I'm amazed that like it flows beautifully in this like way, but it's never in some like a 4/4 tempo. Like it always has this strangeness to it, and it always has like this beyondness to it, which is amazing. And I find that that's something that you bring together as your sound, which is awesome.
That's a whole other skill set where you don't really get that from so much of the speed metal stuff, but a lot of the really slurry parts of stuff where like a guitar part or something isn't just a ba 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 ba, you know, like straight, where you got things that shift and slide around. I mean, when you start dipping back into things going back from the late 60s into the early 70s rock and type stuff, you know, there was a little bit more of a loose flow to doing the parts, you know, where it was more just not that really sloppy, but just the sounds of the instrument, you know, because when the electric sound started to take over and really explode with the fuzzy guitar sounds leading into the distorted guitar sounds into the 70s, you know, a lot of it wasn't just the riffs, but it was the noise of the instrument blended with the flow of the riffs that actually kind of brought the life to what it's doing. So that's why I don't try to just stay in a fucking box with what I'm doing. It's just not a series of notes but just the way that you can actually make the notes work, and then that actually becomes the flavor of the parts.
Damn, that's beautiful.
And then the songs on top of that. I mean, at least I try to do my best with it.
That's absolutely beautiful. I'm so glad you answered in that way. So you have a bunch of bands that you've played over the years, and I'm just kind of curious if you would be into kind of giving us like an adjective or two for each one, something that you feel like each one of these bands, like what does it describe to you? Because you have a particular sound, but each one is different. I'm wondering if you have an idea of like how each one impacts with a word or two, if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, Angel Corpse basically was the maturity of everything that came out of my teen years. You know, 'cause I guess I was about 24 at the time that the demo and the first album of Angel Corpse had come out. But I mean, I'd been trying to put together some kind of a project of some sort from about the time I'd been 18 or 19, still in high school at the time. But like I said, I lived in a really remote area. There wasn't really like-minded musicians, so it just kind of stalled the whole process of actually materializing into something that you can even make a demo or album, no less.
Yeah.
You know, so that was the maturity of everything that I started with that led to that.
Cool.
You know, and then we escalated, you know, the material through, you know, up until the late 90s, going into about 2000. Then the band went away, you know, and then we tried it again in around 2006. And I think around the time that we did that fourth album in 2006, that some people loved it, but some people kind of gave us a little bit of flack for it. But here's the kick, is that with every one of the albums we ever did, going from the first to the second or third, there's clear differences between them. It wasn't a carbon copy of each album. We didn't do one. It ain't like we hit Pay Dirt on the first album. We're just like, well, let's just do that. No. We got to the second album, we tried to do some different things. Got to the third album, I tried to do some different things. And then there was a few years away. Then we came back, we did a fourth album. To me, it was really just the same thing, but with a few new things added. Nice. I think some people expected that we were going to do an Exterminate Part 2 or The Inexorable Part 2. That was never in my mind to do anything like that.
Awesome.
So I did exactly the album that I was supposed to do at that time.
Good, that's powerful.
And then for various reasons, you know, then the band went away after some touring that we did, and, you know, then that was the end of it. Officially, that was really the end of Angel Corpse as an artistic project. It was probably in about 2009.
Okay, there you go.
Discounting the reunion shows that we did a few years ago.
Absolutely. A lot of people might not know that you're actually a filmmaker. And I'm very
dabbled in that since about 2015 or so. Because there was a company, Unearthed Films, that was based out of Tampa, Florida, and I'd known the owner of the company going back probably 15 years now, because it was based right there in Tampa. There was a video store attached to it for a while too. And you know, that guy's into metal music and whatnot, you know, and he did me. And it came around that he was going to start trying to produce some series of films that were like sort of a American take on like this Japanese series that was called the Guinea Pig series.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So they're called the American Guinea Pig series. Not really sequels to each film or anything, but just kind of like a series of a particular type of, you know, film where it's like really gory, you know, over the top type stuff. And he hit me up to get involved with that. And there was one that I did called Bloodshot in 2015, which I had a limited involvement in that. And then in 2016, we went into the production on a following film called Song of Solomon, where I was a little more involved with that. I put a little bit of my finger into the production on that, a little more involvement on the soundtrack, a little bit more involvement on the actual acting side of it, where there was, you know, a little bit more below the dialogue. Even trying to memorize the fucking Latin lines and shit.
Nice.
You know, it was a real process, because when you look at the process of recording an album, you just got audio tracks. You know, so you have however many instruments, you mix those and you finish it. But with a film, you have all of that, plus you have the film, and then you have to mix the audio to the film. You got to make sure that all the different cameras match visually, so there's color. It's like if an album has 30 tracks of audio, to do a film is like 300 fucking tracks of material that needs to be put together and edited to make it work. So there's a lot more cooks in the kitchen, granted, to make a film, but the processes are far beyond what you would do. Just so it was a real experience to like to see how much more types of skill sets that are required to make something like that work.
That's awesome. So obviously, I've seen some of your stuff. I'm curious. Horror is a particular genre. Typically, you have the protagonist could even actually be the horror villain, right? It's the most memorable character. I'm just curious if you have like a top 5 or top 3 or top anything of who your most impactful or favorite characters are that are the horror villains. Is there like, you know?
I've never really like been that huge in the fans of like what you would call like those iconic villains or any of that, like the Freddy Kruegers and the Jasons and all that. I mean,
Sure.
to me, I mean, it's entertainment, but I mean, I like the stuff where it's like you don't really know what to expect. You don't know where the hell it's going to end up. You know, like you watch an old fucking movie, like an old, like I think it was an old Seven Arts movie called Wicker Man.
Oh, nice.
You know, I mean, it was Christopher Lee and Edward Woodward and Ingrid Pitt and a bunch of the old Hammer horror people were involved in it. And you know, you don't know where the hell anything like that. There's not really any gore in it or anything, but you know, it just goes in. It starts out like you're like, what the hell is this about? And it ends up in some, you know, just insane type of disaster. You know, stuff like that appeals to me a lot more. And even like a recent movie that's kind of like rings bells like that was what the hell was that called? It was the follow-up film done by the guy that did Hereditary.
Midsummer.
I thought that was pretty good because you didn't really know where the hell any of this was going to go, and it had some pretty, you know, it had some over-the-top fucking bloody violence in it too, you know. So I thought that was a good one. But yeah, you know, I mean, I've got like a pretty large collection of films and stuff, but it's that type of stuff where you don't really know where the hell any of it's going to go. And you know, that's the stuff that grabs me the most.
A very respectable answer. I actually personally appreciate that much more as well. I'm kind of curious though a bit more about American Guinea Pig and what are you planning on doing more with this? Are you planning on making more movies or
Probably not one of the guinea pig ones, but there is a project in development. But of course, my lips have to be sealed about it because there's
disclosure agreement.
There's like some things going on. But if it all works out, it's going to be really special.
That's awesome.
It won't be a guinea pig film, but
nice. Well, how about this? How about you as a musical artist? Do you have anything next for you?
Well, next and ongoing is going to be Perdition Temple material. I mean, I've had the other projects that I've done over the years, like the Blasphemic Cruelty and Apocalypse Command. All of those are pretty much. There's probably not going to be anything new coming from any of those. Those were ideas that were put to tape at the time. Yeah. You know, but the reality is I'm not going to juggle, you know, 4 or 5 different projects. It's just it just doesn't work.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I've distilled it down to like this is the main thing, because this is basically the you know coming from my teen years, going through Angel Corpse, dabbling with the other projects I've done. Perdition Temple is basically, you know, nip and tuck from everything that I've ever done and pushing forward to whatever the future of what I'm going to do. It's really the main band now, and you know that's the only one that's really active.
Yeah, absolutely.
At all.
I am curious though, like, do you have like some outside of metal? Do you have like some influences musically that might be bringing something forth in you, like outside of metal? Is there?
Well, I mean, I can't really say that I listen to like anything that's really unusual.
Sure.
I mean, I don't really like go way out of the box to find weird music or anything like that. I mean, it's like I could say like, oh, I listen to classical music.
Okay.
I do, but maybe I don't listen to like the regular shit. I might listen to like a lot of stuff with guys that wrote stuff maybe in the 50s and the 60s, which were a lot of like the Eastern European guys. So a lot of their stuff was influenced from the wartime, like Krzysztof Penderecki or Dmitri Shostakovich. You listen to that shit, you damn near it's like listening to, you know, a string quartet doing like death metal almost. I mean, it's very, you could say it's very riff oriented. Anybody that's ever listened to that shit would know exactly what I'm talking about. It's really distinctive that it's not just, you know, melodic, you know, like it's not like listening to Beethoven or something where you just know all those famous pieces. It's like really, you know, there's a lot of cool stuff there, and you know, a lot of it's, you know, since a couple of those guys like Mussorgsky or Shostakovich were like Russian composers, there's that little bit of an odd kind of leaning to the east slant to the melodic content, you know, so I nipped some of that stuff and I try to put that in my wrist. I don't just use your regular major, minor, harmonic minor. I mean, I dip into like some really obscure Eastern and, you know, even like kinds of stuff that
I hear
you
that
don't
in your
really...
riffage, and it kind of blows me away because I hear it. It's got this like weird tinge, and then it also with the timing and stuff, you just have like this. I feel like it's your style almost, and you've had it forever.
Yeah, I don't go for total discordance. I like to have it just lean that way a little bit, so that it's got a little bit of a different sound than what you expect from like a pattern on a guitar part or a riff or something that'll just bend it a little bit different way than you've heard before, but still somehow kind of relates to something you might know. Like I said, I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing is something that I want to listen to. You know, the things that I like to listen to aren't that left field, you know, but I want to do something that's a little bit different, that's got my fingerprint on it. You know, so that's what you get. At least that's the best that I try to do anyways.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. That's awesome. I'm curious, do you have anything that you want to like push or like you have something coming out soon or even like?
Yeah, we just tracked the third full length for the Perdition Temple band, and we're gonna be doing the mixing in January, like the first week of January, and with the normal turnaround that a label has, it's probably going to be February into March, I assume, that the new one will come out.
Nice.
I mean, had things worked maybe differently and availability of members been a little bit different, we might have had it out by the time we did this tour, but it didn't pan out.
Yeah, that's how it is.
You know, scheduling and that shit.
Do you have a, for your movies and stuff, do you have like a website that you have linked up or something?
Well, for the movies, you just go to the company that put them out, which would be unearthedfilms.com.
Cool.
And for the band, we do have a band website, which is simply perditiontemple.com. You know, that's one site, but you know, I use social media site like Facebook, and that's, you know, easy way that
we'll link all this stuff inside of the video too, just to get it all connected.
Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to get in touch with.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, you're an excellent man. I'm so happy to have talked to you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming to the show, guys.
Absolutely. Fuck yeah. Thank you, brother.